I'd say the number one common thread of anybody that I work with is successful financial, athletes, people in politics, it's hunger. You know, you and I both know intelligence is a pretty damn valuable tool, but there are a lot of very smart people who can't fight their way out of a paper bag. And then when you find somebody who has that hunger, the hunger that doesn't go away, that hunger to be more, to do more, to give more, that hunger that never ends, you know, that's how you get these people that are the best in the world at whatever they do. And so if you can, I think everybody has that hunger, but for some people it's been asleep for a long time because they're afraid. They're afraid that I'm gonna get hungry, I'm gonna try, I'm gonna fail. And so it's human nature to protect yourself from the fear by just lowering your expectations. But one of the things I've learned is you get what you tolerate. You get what you tolerate in yourself, you get what you tolerate in your life, and sooner or later we sometimes hit a point where we say, not another day, not another hour, this is done. I'm not walking this way, I'm not talking this way, I'm not living this way, I'm not gonna be in this relationship anymore, I'm gonna change it. And when people do that, that's the beginning of a breakthrough. Everything in my world is based on coming up with the outcome that will serve and then going at it, but most of the time your approach going at it doesn't work. No one else knows that, but you know, you can see it doesn't work, so it's constantly changing your approach until you can get where you want to go. When I enter an audience and I'm going to give a talk of any sort, you know, I do a huge amount of homework in advance, I prepare, I see who's there, but then when I stand up here, I wouldn't be sitting like this, I'm scanning constantly, and who I'm looking for, the people think it's bullshit. I'm going after the people who got dragged there. I'm not looking for the people clapping for me. You know, those people will always be there, and there's some people who clap even if you're terrible, so you don't want to let other people's view make you feel good. I'm looking for who isn't there so that I can reach them, so I can show them that there's something real here. Because, you know, most people don't know who I am. They'd see, you know, 10,000 people jumping in a stadium and they go, oh, it's just a big motivational pump up. I've never been a motivator. It's never been what I've been about. I think motivation is useful. It's like a warm bath. You should probably take a bath or a shower every day, but you need more than that. You need strategy. But what I really believe is energy. Most of us grew up, and right now, most of you are learning in the traditional style you did even when you were in school. You were trained to go to your seat and be silent and be polite and nice. But the world we live in today isn't like that. The world today, if somebody sits down and waits for someone to tell them what to do, they're in trouble. So my approach is constantly stimulating and seeing what's real, getting people to be raw, and getting to truth. You know, as corny as it is, the truth sets us free, and we all can find our own truth as long as we put ourselves in an environment where we don't tolerate anything less than that.
Clarity is the DNA of mastery. So if you look at the titans of business, the true leaders in finance, these people literally will say, look at my charts. If you look at a great military leader, you look at a great athlete, they have such granular, in a world of superficiality, they have shifted to massive granularity so they know in intimate detail exactly what their future timeline will look like. Why? Because clarity breeds and builds and is the DNA of mastery. You want to have a very clear vision of what your future is going to look like. And when you know in intimate detail what your future will look like, then you automatically, subconsciously as well as consciously, can say no to the important. So you say a giant yes to the few things that are most important. You've heard me share this before. Confucius said it so well. The person who chases two rabbits catches neither. And so what I'm encouraging you to do is this exercise before you go to sleep tonight. Let's make this very tactical. I call it the 100-year timeline. On a single page from where you now are, 100 years out into your ideal future. I want you every single milestone on a single line to say, here's where I now am. Here's what's going to happen next week, next month, next quarter, next year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, 50 years, 75 years, 1 year, 100 years, until you have a 100-year timeline. On the other side of the piece of paper with crayons, so you tap into your part of the brain responsible for creativity, your right brain. Okay, with crayons, draw out your ideal family life, draw 1 year away, draw out your business life 1 year away, draw out your adventure life 1 year out into the future, draw out your financial life, draw out your material life, literally on a page with crayons, so you're not thinking, because here's I think a needle-moving insight. World class comes from instinct versus intelligence. You get your best ideas when you get out of your thinking. And just to give you some neuroscience, The seat of reasoning is the prefrontal cortex, but there's a phenomenon I teach in my live events called transient hypofrontality. This is the secret of genius. Geniuses don't get their ideas for Uber, Amazon, the electric bulb, Tesla, Shakespeare, the polio vaccination, SpaceX. Great ideas don't come from the intellects. They don't come from the neocortex reasoning and thinking. All great heroes and great inventors and great creators dialed into something deeper. When you get out of your neocortex through solitude and my life structure that I teach called the tight bubble of total focus, and when you get away from distraction and you immerse yourself in deep creativity and creation, and you find your laboratory, or what I call your Menlo Park, like Edison had his Menlo Park, which was with the wilderness away from the world, what happens? The prefrontal cortex gets silent. It's called transient, which means temporary, transient hypo, small, frontality. The neocortex, the seat in your brain of thinking, actually shuts down for a short period of time. This is profound information and will confirm your brain is built for genius. But if you don't do the right things, you're not going to be able to allow the genius to see the light of day.
The hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. And the moment you decide to no longer think the same way, make the same choice, act the same way, create the same experience, or live by the same emotion, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel unfamiliar. There is going to be a certain amount of uncertainty and unpredictability. And the moment you feel uncomfortable, you just stepped into the river of change. Now, most people, the moment they feel uncomfortable, they return back to the familiar state of the mind and body. They start thinking the same way, acting the same way, feeling the same way, and they say, this feels right. No, in fact, that feels familiar. Now, going from the old self to the new self is the neurological, is the chemical, is the biological, is the hormonal, and even genetic death of the old self. That void, that place of uncertainty, that unknown, is the perfect place to create it. And if you and I can become comfortable in that unknown and begin to decide who we do want to be. In other words, many people say when they're in that unknown, I can't predict my future. This doesn't feel right. Well, the best way to predict your future is to create it, not in the known, but in the unknown. So what if you said now, what thoughts do I want to fire and wire in my brain? What behaviors do I want to demonstrate? And if you were to close your eyes and begin to think about how you are going to act, the mere act of mentally rehearsing who you're going to be begins to install the neurological circuits in your brain to look like the experience has already occurred. Now, what that means is that the brain is primed in its circuitry to no longer be living in the past, but now living in the future.
I think that success is a process. And I believe that my first Easter speech in the Kosciuszko Baptist Church at the age of 3.5 was the beginning. And that every other speech, every other book I read, every other time I spoke in public was a building block. So that by the time I first sat down to audition in front of a television camera and somebody says, read this, what allowed me to read it so comfortably and be so at ease with myself at that time was the fact that I'd been doing it a while. If I'd never read a book or I'd never spoken in public before, I would have been traumatized by it. So the fact that we went on the air with the Oprah Winfrey Show in 1986 nationally, and people say, oh, but you're so comfortable in front of the camera, you can be yourself. Well, it's because I've been being myself since I was 19. And I would not have been able to be as comfortable with myself had I not made mistakes on the air and been allowed to make mistakes on the air and understand that it doesn't matter. You know, there's no such thing to me as an embarrassing moment. No such thing. If I tripped and fell, if my bra strap showed, if my slip fell off, if I fell flat on my face, there's no such thing as an embarrassing moment because I know that there is not a moment that I could possibly experience on the air that somebody else hasn't already experienced. So when it happens, you say, oh, my slip fell off. And it's no big deal. I mean, like, I was on TV the other day and somebody says, oh, Oprah, you have a run. Have you not seen a run before in your life? Well, I get them too, let me tell you. So, I mean, I can't be embarrassed. I can't be embarrassed. Now, when I first started out, that was not true, because I was pretending to be somebody I was not. I was pretending to be Barbara Walters. So I'd go to a news conference, and I was more interested in how I phrased the question and how eloquent the question sounded, as opposed to listening to the answer. Which always happens when you're interested in impressing people instead of doing what you're supposed to be doing. And it took me a while. It took me messing up on the air, during a live newscast. I was doing a list of foreign countries, and there was all these foreign names, and then Canada was thrown in, and I called Canada, Canada. And I got so tickled that I called Canada. I go, that wasn't Canada, that was Canada. Excuse me, that wasn't Canada, that wasn't Canada, that was Canada. And then I started laughing. Well, it became the first real moment I ever had. And the news director later said to me, well, if you do that, then you should just keep going. You shouldn't correct yourself and let people know. Well, I know, well, who's ever heard of Canada? So that was, for me, the beginning of realizing that, oh, you can laugh at yourself and you can make a mistake, and it's not the end of the world. You don't have to be perfect. And biggest lesson for me for television, because then it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Oh, sorry, bra strap showing.